Get out of my building before I have security throw you out, the silver-haired executive snarled, his face purple with rage. You journalists are all the same, vultures picking at bones you don't understand. Zara didn't flinch. She'd had worse thrown at her. Last month, a hedge fund manager had literally thrown a chair. Mr. Harrington, I have documents proving your company dumped toxic waste into. I know who put you up to this. His voice dropped to something venomous. Kane Wolfe. He wants my company, so he sends his little attack dog to soften me up first. Her blood went cold. I don't work for Kane Wolfe. I expose men like him. Sure you don't. Harrington's laugh was bitter. Everyone, on someone's payroll, sweetheart, even you. 20 minutes later, Zara slammed her apartment door hard enough to rattle the frame. Rain from the sudden storm had soaked through her jacket, her hair plastered to her face, but she barely noticed. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone, scrolling through her files on Kane Wolfe, the billionaire who'd become her white whale. Kane Wolfe, the man who bought companies like chess pieces and dismantled them without mercy. The man whose legal team had buried 3 of her investigations in the past year alone. The man whose face she'd never even seen clearly, just blurred photos from a distance, always in shadow, always protected. She hated him. Her phone buzzed. Her editor, Marcus. The Wolf piece is dead. Legal killed it. Again. I'm sorry, Z. Zara threw her phone onto the couch and pressed her palms against her eyes. 5 years of investigative journalism, and she couldn't touch one man. One ghost in a suit who destroyed lives from ivory towers she couldn't reach. Someone knocked on her door. Ms. Callen, a voice deep and unfamiliar. Building management, we have a noise complaint. She yanked open the door, ready to snap that she'd slammed one door, when the words died in her throat. The man standing in her hallway wasn't building management. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair curling slightly at his collar, still wet from the rain. A gray Henley clung to broad shoulders, and his eyes, God, his eyes were this impossible shade of amber that seemed to catch the hallway light and hold it. But that wasn't what stopped her breathing. It was something in his face, something that tugged at a memory she'd buried so deep she'd convinced herself it was gone. He cleared his throat, looking almost nervous. Sorry, wrong door. I'm your new neighbor. Apartment 7C. Someone told me 7B was the building manager. Zara found her voice. That's 7A2 floors down. Right, sorry. He didn't move. Just stood there, rainwater dripping from his jacket onto the ugly carpet, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. She should close the door. She had work to do, rage to channel, a billionaire to destroy. Instead, she heard herself say, "You're soaked. Do you need?" "I'm fine," too quick. Then softer, "Thank you though, I'm Leo Maddox." Leo. The name hit her like a fist to the chest. But that was impossible. Her Leo had brown eyes, not amber. Her Leo had been 19, skinny and scared, not this man with shoulders that could block out the sun. Her Leo had disappeared 10 years ago without a word. Zara, she managed, Callen. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, pain, it was gone before she could name it. Nice to meet you, Zara Callen. He stepped back. I'll let you get back to your evening. He was gone before she could think of what to say next, his door closing with a soft click that somehow sounded final. Zara stood in her doorway for a full minute, her heart doing something complicated and uncomfortable in her chest, before she shook herself and went inside. She had bigger problems than a handsome neighbor with a familiar name. She had Kane Wolfe to destroy. The coffee shop on 5th Avenue was Zara's office when her actual office became too suffocating. She'd been parked at her corner table for 3 hours, surrounded by files and laptop screens, when someone slid into the seat across from her. This seat taken. Leo Maddox, wearing a black sweater that should be illegal and holding 2 cups of coffee. He set one in front of her. Vanilla latte, extra shot, no foam. Before we continue, can I ask you a question? Where in the world are you watching from? Comment below because we'd love to know how far these stories travel, and hit that subscribe button. The barista said it's your usual. Zara stared at the cup like it might explode. Are you stalking me? I live in your building and this coffee shop is 2 blocks away. His mouth quirked. I'm just existing in your radius, but I can leave if. No, the word came out too fast. She didn't examine why. Stay, thank you for the coffee. He settled into his chair with a grace that seemed at odds with his size, and she caught herself watching the way his hands wrapped around his cup. Large hands, scarred knuckles, working hands, not office hands. Rough morning. He nodded at her laptop screen. A photo of Kane Wolfe's corporate headquarters looming like a steel and glass monster. You could say that. Zara slammed the laptop shut. Work, it's complicated. Journalist, right. I saw your press badge the other night. Investigative, I expose corruption. She waited for the usual response, either fear or dismissal. Men with money tended toward the latter. Instead, Leo leaned forward. That must be lonely work. The observation caught her off guard. Why would it be lonely? Because corruption means powerful people, and powerful people have long reaches. His amber eyes held hers. Must be hard to trust anyone when your job is uncovering lies. Something in her chest cracked open. You have no idea. Maybe I do. He took a sip of coffee, and for just a second she saw something raw in his expression. I grew up in foster care, 12 different homes before I aged out. You learn pretty quick that everyone's hiding something. Everyone's got an angle. Zara's fingers tightened on her cup. I'm sorry, that must have been. It made me careful. His voice went soft. Maybe too careful. I pushed away the only person who ever, he stopped, shook his head. Sorry, too much honesty for a coffee shop conversation. But Zara was leaning forward now, her work forgotten. No, tell me, the only person who ever what? Leo's eyes locked on hers, and the noise of the coffee shop seemed to fade away. The only person who ever made me feel like I could be someone real, not just a system kid, not just a survivor, someone who mattered. Her heart was pounding. What happened? I ran, simple words weighted with years of regret. I was 19, stupid and scared. She deserved better than what I could give her, so I left, changed everything about myself, built a different life. Did you ever tell her why? No, the word came out rough. I was a coward. I convinced myself I was protecting her, but really I was just protecting myself from watching her realize I wasn't enough. Zara's throat burned. She knew this story. She lived this story. Except her Leo had had brown eyes and a stutter when he was nervous, and a way of looking at her like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing. This man was a stranger. But God, he felt familiar. Maybe she would have understood, Zara heard herself whisper. Maybe she would have wanted to fight for you. Maybe. Leo's smile was heartbreak in real time. But I'll never know, and that's what I deserve for being too scared to trust her with the truth. Before Zara could respond, before she could process the tears burning behind her eyes, her phone exploded with notifications. Marcus, emergency, conference room now. She looked up to find Leo already standing. Go, work calls. Leo, We'll talk again, Zara Callen. He said her full name like a promise. I'd like that very much. He was gone before she could catch her breath. The conference room was chaos. They're suing us. Marcus threw a legal document across the table. Wolfe Enterprises. $50 million for defamation, based on your draft article that never even ran. Zara's blood turned to ice. How did they get my draft? Doesn't matter. What matters is they have it and they're claiming you fabricated sources. Marcus looked 10 years older than he had this morning. Zara, this could destroy the paper. It could destroy you. She grabbed the document, scanning the dense legal language until she found the signature at the bottom. Kane Wolfe, CEO, Wolfe Enterprises. The signature was bold, aggressive, exactly what she'd expect from a man who crushed everything in his path. I didn't fabricate anything. Her voice shook with rage. Every source is documented, every. They're claiming your primary source is fake, a deep-throat figure you invented to justify the article. Marcus rubbed his face. And without revealing your source, we can't prove otherwise. Zara's source was a former Wolfe Enterprises executive who'd fled the country after witnessing illegal trading practices. Revealing him would put his life at risk. Kane Wolfe knew that. He was betting she'd choose the source over herself. "He's trying to silence me," she said quietly. "This is what he does, legal warfare until his enemies crumble. Can you prove the source exists without nomming him?" Zara's mind raced. "I need time, I need." Her phone rang, unknown number. Something made her answer. "Ms. Callen." The voice was smooth, corporate, lethal. "My name is James Chen. I'm calling on behalf of Kane Wolfe." Her hand clenched around the phone. "I have nothing to say to. Mr. Wolfe would like to meet with you, personally, to discuss a resolution to this unfortunate situation." "A resolution? He's suing me for $50 million. A misunderstanding that could be cleared up over dinner. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. I'll send you the address." "I'm not having dinner with Ms. Callen." Chen's voice dropped. "Mr. Wolfe doesn't extend invitations twice. I suggest you accept this one, for your career's sake." The line went dead. Zara stared at her phone, rage and fear warring in her chest. Marcus watched her carefully. "What was that?" "Kane Wolfe wants to meet me, tomorrow night." "Zara, no, that's insane. He could destroy me," she laughed bitterly. "He's already doing that. At least if I meet him face to face, I'll finally know who I'm fighting." She spent 5 years chasing a ghost. Tomorrow night, she'd face the monster. Zara stood outside her apartment at 6:30 the next evening, wearing her armor, a black dress that was professional enough for business, sharp enough for battle. Her hands shook as she tried to lock her door. Hot date. She spun to find Leo leaning against his doorframe, and her breath caught despite everything. He wore dark jeans and a white t-shirt, somehow making casual look like art, and his hair was still damp like he'd just showered. "Work dinner," she managed to get her key in the lock, unfortunately. "You look terrified." The observation was so gentle, so knowing, that she almost broke. "I'm meeting someone I'd rather punch than dine with." Leo pushed off his doorframe, closing the distance between them. "Want me to come with you? Moral support. I'm told I'm intimidating when I need to be." Zara looked up at him, really looked. At the concern in his amber eyes, the protective set of his shoulders, the way he held himself like he'd step between her and danger without hesitation. For one wild second, she almost said yes. "I have to do this alone," she whispered, "but thank you, really." His hand came up, hovering near her face like he wanted to touch her but didn't quite dare. "Whoever this dinner is with, they'd be an idiot to underestimate you, Zara Callen." The way he said her name again, full, complete, weighted with something that felt like history, made her dizzy. "Leo, be safe." He stepped back and the loss of his proximity felt physical. "And if you need anything, I'm right here. Call me, text me, bang on my door at 3 a.m., whatever you need." She wanted to ask why. Why he cared. Why a man she'd known for 3 days felt more real than anyone she'd met in years. Instead, she nodded and fled before she could do something stupid like kiss him. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and every table held people who looked like they bought companies before breakfast. Zara gave the host Kane Wolfe's name and tried not to vomit. "Right this way, Ms. Callen." They led her through the restaurant to a private room in the back, soundproof, isolated, every instinct screamed trap. But she'd come this far. The host opened the door and Zara stepped inside, her heart a war drum in her chest. The private room was empty. Just a table set for two, candles flickering, city lights beyond the window painting everything in gold and shadow. Then she heard the door close behind her, and a voice, deep, familiar, impossible, said, "Hello, Zara." She spun around. Leo Maddox stood with his back against the door, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car, his amber eyes full of something that looked like pain and inevitability. "Leo, what are you?" The words died as understanding crashed over her like ice water. "No, no, you're not Leo," she whispered. "You're Kane Wolfe." He said it like a confession, like an execution. "But I was Leo first, Leo Maddox, 10 years ago, when we were young and stupid and I loved you so much I couldn't breathe." The room tilted. Zara gripped the back of a chair to keep from falling, her mind trying to reconcile impossible truths. The boy she'd loved had brown eyes, but colored contacts existed. The boy she'd loved had been rail-thin and hungry, but 10 years and money could change a body. The boy she'd loved had stuttered when he was nervous, but trauma could steal a voice and rebuild it harder. "You left me," her voice broke. "You disappeared. I looked for you. I know." Kane Leo, God, she didn't even know what to call him, took a step forward and she took one back. "Zara, please, let me explain." "Explain?" Hysterical laughter bubbled up her throat. "You're Kane Wolfe, the man I've spent 5 years trying to destroy, the man who's suing me for $50 million, the man who," her breath caught. "You knew, this whole time, the coffee shop, the conversations, you knew who I was." "Yes." The simple admission shattered something in her chest. "You let me fall for you again." Tears burned her eyes. "You let me trust you. Was this all just a game? Get close to your enemy, find her weaknesses." "No." He crossed the room in 3 strides and she stumbled back against the window. "Zara, listen to me. When your name appeared in legal documents 6 months ago, I didn't believe it at first. But then I saw your photo and his voice cracked. "I had to know if you remembered me, if you hated me, if you'd become everything I ran away from. So you went undercover, played the sweet neighbor. I needed to see you." His hands clenched at his sides like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for her. "Not as Kane Wolfe the billionaire, not as the villain in your articles, as me, the boy who loved you, the man who never stopped." "Liar." The word was venom. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have left. If you loved me, you wouldn't have built an empire on destroying people. If you loved me, you wouldn't have sued me into oblivion." "The lawsuit is fake." He said it so quietly she almost missed it. "There's no case. I had my lawyers draft it to force this meeting. I was going to drop it tomorrow." Zara stared at him. "What?" "I needed to see you, face to face, without the masks." Kane's laugh was broken. "But then you walked into that coffee shop and you didn't recognize me, and I thought maybe I could have one more chance, one more moment of being just Leo, the boy you loved before I became the monster." "You are a monster," but her voice shook. "You destroy companies, you ruin lives." "I destroy corrupt companies, I ruin corrupt lives." He pulled a folder from inside his jacket and dropped it on the table. "Every company I've taken over in the last 5 years, every CEO I've removed. Read them, Zara, really read them." She didn't want to see anything that might complicate the clean narrative of villain and hero. But she was a journalist. So she read. And the room tilted again. Wolfe Enterprises hadn't just taken over companies. They'd gutted the corruption inside them, exposed the CEOs committing fraud, reinstated the whistleblowers who'd been silenced, given severance packages to workers who'd been exploited. She couldn't form the words. "This is what you do." "This is what I've always done." Kane's voice was raw. "After I left you, I spent 2 years homeless, sleeping in shelters, fighting to survive. I watched the powerful crush the powerless every single day. And I swore, if I ever got out, if I ever got power of my own, I'd use it to burn down the system that created monsters like the ones who hurt us. Zara looked up at him, this man who was Leo and Kane and somehow both and neither. Then, why do you hide it? Why let everyone think you're the villain? Because villains don't get investigated. Villains don't get journalists digging into their personal lives. His amber eyes locked on hers. Villains get to keep their secrets. And I have secrets, Zara, about where I came from, what I survived, things I'm not ready to have exposed. Things like me. Bitterness flooded her mouth. Was I a secret too shameful to keep? No. He was in front of her before she could blink, his hands framing her face with devastating gentleness. You were the only good thing I'd ever had, and I was terrified I'd ruin you. I was 19 and damaged and so fucking scared that staying would destroy you. So I ran, and I hated myself for it every day since. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You should have trusted me. I know. His thumb brushed away her tears and the touch felt like coming home and breaking apart all at once. I'm sorry. God, Zara, I'm so sorry. For leaving, for lying, for all of it. She pulled away from his touch because staying would shatter her completely. You sued me. You threatened my career. I was desperate. He let his hands fall. I've been watching you from a distance for months, trying to work up the courage to approach you. Then I saw you were investigating me, really investigating, getting close to truths I wasn't ready to share, and I panicked. I thought if I could just talk to you, explain, maybe. He stopped. I handled it wrong, everything wrong. So what now? Zara wrapped her arms around herself. You dropped the lawsuit, I dropped my investigation. We both pretend this never happened. No, Kane's voice turned fierce. I don't want to pretend anything. He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. I want to tell you everything, the whole truth, where I've been, what I've built, why I built it, and then I want you to write about it. She blinked. What? Write the exposé, Zara, the real one, about Kane Wolfe, about Leo Maddox, about the boy who ran and the man he became. He pulled out his phone, typed something, and hers buzzed. I just gave you access to everything. Financial records, corporate documents, personal files. Every secret I've been hiding, it's yours. Zara stared at her phone, at the flood of files downloading. Why would you do this? Because I trust you. Simple words that felt like an earthquake. Because you deserve the truth. And because I'm tired of hiding from the only person who ever really saw me. She looked up at him. This man who'd been her first love and her greatest enemy, who'd broken her heart and apparently spent a decade trying to make the world better in twisted, hidden ways. I don't know if I can forgive you, she whispered. I know, pain flickered across his face, but maybe you can understand me, and maybe that's enough. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But as Zara stood in that restaurant overlooking the city, Kane Wolfe's secrets downloading onto her phone and her heart breaking open in her chest, she realized something terrifying. She wanted it to be. Zara didn't go home that night. She went to her office and read. Every file, every document, every secret Kane Wolfe had given her access to. At 3 a.m. she called him. He answered on the first ring, voice rough with sleeplessness. Zara. The Harrington case. Her voice shook. You were the whistleblower. You fed information to the EPA about the toxic dumping. Yes. And the Peterson pharmaceutical scandal. You bankrupted your own investment to expose them selling faulty medications. Yes. Kane, she pressed her fingers to her eyes. This article I was writing about you, it would have destroyed everything you've built. I know, no accusation, just acknowledgement. You were going to let me. If that's what you needed to do. His voice was soft. I hurt you, Zara, 10 years ago and 3 days ago. If destroying Kane Wolfe helped you heal, then he deserved to burn. She made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. You're insane. "I'm in love with you," said like a fact, like gravity. "I have been since we were kids. I will be until I die. Everything else is just details." Zara sat in the silence of her office, surrounded by the truth of a man who'd spent 10 years becoming someone who could protect the powerless while punishing the powerful, and realized she had a choice. She could write the exposé that destroyed him, or she could write the truth. "I need time," she whispered, "to process this, to figure out what I feel." "Take all the time you need." She heard rustling like he was settling back into bed. "But Zara, I'm not going anywhere this time, even if you hate me, even if you write an article that tears me apart. I'm staying. I'm right here, for as long as you'll let me be." She hung up before she could say something dangerous. "Like I love you too. Like I never stopped." Zara spent the next week avoiding Kane Wolfe and writing the most important article of her career. She interviewed his former employees, the ones he'd protected, not the corrupt executives he'd removed. She tracked down the whistleblowers he'd supported, the workers he'd given second chances, the communities his hostile takeovers had actually saved. She called every source, confirmed every fact, built a story that was nothing like what she'd expected to write. And through it all, Leo, Kane God, she still didn't know what to call him, kept his distance. But every morning there was coffee at her door, her exact order. Every night there was a text, "Still here, still waiting, take your time." On the sixth day, her editor called her into his office. "Is this real?" Marcus held her draft article, his expression unreadable. "All of it." "Every word." Zara's hand shook. "I've verified every source, confirmed every claim. Kane Wolfe isn't the villain we thought he was. He's the villain everyone thinks he is." Marcus set down the article, which apparently is exactly what he wants. "Zara, this is Pulitzer-level work, but if you publish it, you're going to make a lot of powerful people very angry, people who benefit from Wolfe being seen as the bad guy." "I know," she thought about nothing else for days, "but it's the truth." Marcus studied her for a long moment. "There's something else, isn't there? Something personal." Zara's throat tightened. "He's someone I used to know, a long time ago, before he became Kane Wolfe." "Are you too close to this?" "Maybe." Honesty felt like bleeding, but that doesn't make the story less true. "All right," Marcus stood. "We'll run it, front page, Sunday edition. But Zara, after this publishes, there's no going back. Whatever relationship you have with this man, it's going to change." She nodded and left before he could see her tears. The article went live at midnight on Saturday. Title: "The Billionaire I Loved, Then Hated, Then Understood." By morning, it had gone viral. By afternoon, Zara's phone was exploding with interview requests, death threats from executives she'd exposed by association, and marriage proposals from people who apparently found investigative journalism sexy. She ignored all of it. At 7 p.m., someone knocked on her door. She knew who it would be before she opened it. Kane Wolfe stood in her hallway wearing jeans and the same gray Henley from the night they'd met, looking nothing like a billionaire and everything like the boy she'd loved. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi," her voice cracked. "I read it." His eyes were suspiciously bright. "Zara, he stopped, shook his head. "You told the truth, not the version that would make you look good or me look like a hero, just the complicated, messy truth." "It's what I do." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm sorry if it—" "Sorry," he laughed, the sound broken and beautiful. "Zara, you gave me something I've never had. You saw all of me, the boy and the monster and everything in between, and you chose truth over revenge. Do you have any idea what that means to me?" She didn't have words. So he gave her his. "I'm stepping down as CEO." He said it calmly, like he wasn't detonating his entire life. "Effective immediately. I'm transferring majority control of Wolfe Enterprises to a board I've been building for 2 years, people who believe in what I've been doing, who will keep fighting the fights I started. Zara's heart stopped. Kane, you can't. I can. He took a step closer. The Empire was never the point, it was just a tool, a way to have enough power to protect people who couldn't protect themselves, but it cost me everything else. My privacy, my identity, you. His voice dropped to a whisper. I'm done hiding behind Kane Wolfe. I want to be Leo again, the boy who wasn't afraid to be seen. But I bought a beach house. He pulled a photo from his pocket and held it out. 3 hours north. Small town, nobody knows me. I'm going to disappear for a while, figure out who I am when I'm not performing villain or hero, just myself. Zara took the photo with shaking hands. It showed a small cottage overlooking the ocean, weathered and perfect, and about as far from Billionaire as possible. Why are you telling me this? She whispered. Because I owe you the truth. Kane's hands hung at his sides, careful not to touch her. And because if there's any chance, any possibility that someday you might forgive me enough to, he stopped, started again. I'm not asking you to come with me, or love me, or even forgive me. I just wanted you to know where I'll be, in case you ever want to find me. He turned to leave. And Zara heard herself say, wait. He froze. She moved without thinking, closing the distance between them, and pulled something from her pocket. A letter, worn and creased and stained with decade-old tears. You wrote me this, she said quietly. The week before you disappeared, you told me I was the reason you believed in tomorrow, that even when everything was dark, I was light. Her voice broke. I've carried it for 10 years, through every apartment, every city, every article. I couldn't let it go even when I wanted to hate you for leaving. Kane stared at the letter like it might disappear. You kept it. I kept it. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Because even when I hated Kane Wolfe, I never stopped loving Leo Maddox, and I'm so angry at you for making me love them both. Zara. I need time. She held up a hand when he started to reach for her. Real time, to finish processing this, to figure out if I can build something with a man who spent 10 years lying to the world. But she took a shaking breath. In a few months, when I've sorted through everything, I might show up at a beach house 3 hours north, with my recorder and a bag and questions you'll hate answering. Hope dawned across his face like sunrise. And if you show up, then we'll write a new story. She managed a watery smile. Ours if you'll let me. Kane closed his eyes like she'd given him salvation. I'll be waiting, however long it takes. Kane, she stopped him before he could leave. No more secrets, no more masks. If we do this, it's truth or nothing. Truth or nothing, he agreed. I promise. He kissed her forehead, soft and reverent and goodbye, and left. Zara stood in her doorway and watched him go, her heart breaking and mending all at once. 4 months later, Zara Callen pulled up to a beach house 3 hours north of the city. The cottage was exactly like the photo, weathered shingles, wraparound porch, ocean spreading beyond it like possibility. Smoke curled from the chimney despite the warm spring evening, and she could hear music drifting through the windows. She sat in her car for 10 minutes, fear and hope warring in her chest. Then she grabbed her bag, her recorder, and the letter she'd carried for 10 years, and walked up to the door. It opened before she could knock. Leo, she decided on Leo, the name that felt like home, stood backlit by firelight, barefoot in jeans and a t-shirt, his hair longer and curlier than she'd ever seen it. He looked younger, softer, real. Hi, he said, like she hadn't made him wait 4 months. Hi, Zara held up her recorder. I've got one more story to write, ours if you'll let me. Leo's smile was the sun breaking through clouds. Every word, every truth, whatever you need. She stepped inside, and he closed the door behind her, shutting out the world. Where do we start? He asked. Zara set down her bag and her recorder, took his face in her hands and said, The beginning, when we were kids and everything was dark except each other. We were 17, Leo whispered, his hand settling on her waist like he'd been waiting 10 years to hold her again. And you were wearing a yellow dress that was 2 sizes too big. And you were hiding in the library because the other foster kids were being cruel. And you sat down next to me, his voice broke, and you said, "You look like you need a friend," Zara finished. Tears streamed down her face. And you said, "I need someone who sees me." Leo pulled her closer until they were breathing the same air. "And you did, you saw me. You've always seen me." "I still see you." She touched her forehead to his. "All of you, the boy and the man and the broken parts and the beautiful ones. I see you, Leo Maddox." "I see you too, Zara Callen." He brushed his thumb across her cheek. "Can I kiss you?" "You'd better." He kissed her as rain started falling outside, soft and sweet and tasting like salt and tears and coming home. His hands trembled as they cradled her face, and she felt 10 years of longing pour into that single moment of contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and crying and laughing, Zara said, "I love you. I hate that I love you. I hate how much time we lost, but I love you." "I love you." Leo pressed kisses to her forehead, her cheeks, her nose. "I've loved you since you were 17 and fierce. I'll love you when we're 90 and gray. I love you, Zara, every version of you." No more running. She needed to hear him say it. "Never again." He pulled her flush against him. "You're stuck with me. For interviews, for arguments, for all the complicated truths we still have to sort through. I'm here, I'm real, and I'm yours." "Mine," she agreed and kissed him again. They spent that night on his couch, wrapped in. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I truly appreciate you for spending your time here. It means a lot more than you know. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I really want to hear from you. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. Your support helps the channel grow and brings more stories like this your way. Thank you for being here. More amazing stories are coming, don't miss them.